This forecast is brought to you by me. For information on readings I offer, as well as to purchase your own reading, check out my website at manic.mercurian.net, or you can email me at manic.mercurian@gmail.com, and all of that information is always in the description, and I will comment it as well if I remember. Thank you. Welcome to your astrological forecast for the week of Monday, July 8th through Sunday, July 14th, 2024. This week, we're kind of breaking up this like mini Cancerian era that we just experienced. And by that, I just mean we recently had Sun, Venus, Mercury, and for a short time, the moon as well, all in Cancer. That was kind of a big cluster. However, last week, Mercury entered Leo. And as you can see, as we start the week on Monday, July 8th, we already have Mercury cruising deep into Leo. Monday, noon Eastern Standard Time, Mercury's already at, almost at 10 degrees Leo. And Moon is in Leo as well. So we're kind of starting the week with a lot of, Cancer still, with Sun and Venus in Cancer, a lot of emotion and, those deep, like it's the water element, a lot of emotion and intuition still. But also a lot of like pride and outgoing energy with Mercury and Moon in Leo as well. And as we kind of look at the chart in general, I think things almost look suspiciously normal, which is, I say that with extreme caution. I know that we are living in intense times, crazy times. We can see that in, especially in the outer planets of the chart. We just had a really volatile period this spring. And we're expecting to have a volatile period this coming fall as well. That comes with the eclipse seasons and all of that. We're also looking at a Mercury retrograde later on this summer. But for now, though, things are relatively, keyword relatively, peaceful. And that's because the planets are kind of scattered now. Honestly, the more scattered the planets are, the less extreme the chart will be. You'll remember back in April when almost all the planets were clustered around Aries and then Taurus. That's where things get so intense and so volatile, for better or for worse. So, now the planets are spreading out, as I knew they would. So yeah, this is generally good. When the planets are spread out, it almost doesn't matter what your personal astrological makeup is, because you're bound to have some positive, easy aspects. You'll have some challenging aspects. It's kind of a mix. That's what makes things quote unquote normal. So enjoy that. Enjoy this relative normalcy. Of course, there may, we all have different experiences, of course. There may be some outliers that are having an intense time right now. I would especially look at, people who have major placements in Cancer and Leo. If you have a birthday around now, of course, that's always a time of renewal and growth. So there could be like some extremeness here and there, but for, in general, for most people, I think this is a short, relative calm period. Okay, but I just wanted to show you what the chart kind of looks like at the beginning of the week. However, I'm really going to focus more on the end of the week for this forecast, because that's where, at least on paper, that's where the most activity is. So this chart is for Thursday, July 11th at 12 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. You can see that, as we skip from Monday to now Thursday, Moon has progressed and transited from Leo to Virgo. I really like this. Moon in Virgo complements Sun and still Venus in Cancer. Cancer and Virgo are sextile signs. And then we've got a little bit of fire with Mercury in Leo. We've still got Jupiter in Gemini, bringing that little bit of air energy. I like it. It's, things are relatively balanced right now, as I was saying. However, what I wanted to talk about is, you'll remember from my last week's forecast where we had this weird thing where, because Neptune's at the last degree of Pisces, it just turned retrograde there, if you'll remember. We're at this weird, that's where we can get into, we are in a really weird phase or time period on a more long-term level. We all know that. We realize that at this point. But because Neptune is at the last degree of its sign, Pisces, I was saying how pretty much any time a planet leaves one sign, right before it enters another sign, it will make some kind of aspect, some kind of angle to Neptune. So we saw that with Mercury last week, and now Venus is following in Mercury's footsteps. By the time we get to Thursday, you can see Venus is at the last minute of the last degree of Cancer, by noon Eastern Standard Time. So as Venus reaches that last degree of Cancer, it makes technically it's a waxing trine to Neptune. Waxing trine? Yeah, waxing trine. So it makes this strong connection, this strong conversation, between Venus and Neptune. So Venus, it's at this very dreamy, very emotional last degree of Cancer, very deep. Like we're really desiring intimacy and depth, but we're also desiring things that are safe. Like this is a conservative energy, not politically, but like, it's not risk taking. Venus in Cancer shows we're still desiring things that are safe, familiar, comfortable. And with this trine to Neptune at the last degree of Pisces, we're channeling in something very deep and spiritual. This may be kind of weird or otherworldly. And that can happen. I know that sounds a little bit contradictory, but we can find the deep, the bizarre, the meaningful and profound through our emotion, through our closest relationships. I think that's what this is all about. That's my best interpretation of this. But what's interesting is this is a relatively brief aspect. Venus will make this very powerful, mystical, spiritual trine to Neptune. This is really, really beautiful for anything creative. If you're an artistic person, I know there's a lot of creative people who listen to my little forecasts. So this could be a really great day for channeling that emotion and inspiration and intuition, doing either into something creative, artistic, or maybe having like a deep connection with someone that someone you have a connection with, someone you have a relationship with, probably someone you already know. This could be a time for getting to know someone new, for sure. But generally speaking, I would think this is more oriented toward like, let's look at something that's already familiar to you. Neptune's retrograde and Venus is direct, but it's in Cancer, which is more oriented toward things that are already familiar to us. So this is a time of kind of refreshing and looking back and, I don't know, falling in love again with someone that you are already familiar with. I don't know, something like that, or channeling those creative juices and such. But again, this is a short-term aspect. This really just, I would say it's pretty strong. It will, definitely affect us for, let's just say, all day Thursday. But even within the day on Thursday, Venus will leave Cancer and enter Leo. So that's where we get this like burst of very emotional, deep, creative, intuitive energies. And then the energy suddenly shifts as Venus leaves Cancer and enters Leo today. And so that shows a huge shift in what we are desiring. Where's the pleasure? Where's the desire? Where's the attraction? All of that changes from Cancer to Leo. There are some commonalities, like Cancer and Leo are both very family-oriented signs. So we're still desiring things that are, I don't know, having to do with like family or relationships and, those that are close to us. Like these are both very loyal signs, so we're desiring that kind of like consistency and those really strong bonds. The difference though is that Venus is shifting from a water sign to a fire sign, so this is becoming much more like masculine and like outgoing and fun loving, rather than when we were just having Venus in Cancer. It's more about sticking with what's safe, and it's very like sensual and deep. It's a heavier energy with Venus in Cancer. So now we're moving away from that, moving into Venus in Leo, and Venus is joining Mercury as well. So with Mercury and now Venus in Leo, we're already experiencing some of that Leo energy. It may already feel like Leo season, even though Sun is still in Cancer. Suddenly, we had so many Cancer placements, but suddenly now Sun is alone in Cancer. So again, it may not even really feel like Cancer season. I'm just pushing the chart forward to illustrate my point a little more. So you can see now, even just a few hours ahead, Venus in Leo, Mercury in Leo. It's almost like Leo season. We're getting glimpses of it before it's really happening. So again, it's feeling like the middle of summer. And it's kind of weirdly appropriate because I know in a lot of areas it's already very hot, like temperature wise. I don't know if there is a connection between astrology and weather and climate. I think there is, but we're already experiencing like this heat in many places. So yeah, that's kind of fitting for Mercury and Venus already entering Leo. Leo season is, we're getting those hints of Leo season. So, it's fire, it's fixed fire, it's warmth, confidence. It's kind of like party energy, middle of summer type energy is what we're getting. Very optimistic, fun loving, still family oriented, but also Leo's a rambunctious sign. It wants to party, wants to explore, wants to assert its individuality. So with Mercury and Venus in Leo, these types of themes are more of what we're going to explore intellectually and with our desire and attraction as well. We're wanting freedom, fun, pride, optimism, etc. Okay, let's go forward and see what else I have to talk about. So jumping ahead a day to Friday, July 12th. Okay, this is another interesting thing. So Neptune is at the last degree of Pisces. Pluto is not at the first degree. I will fight with these astrologers over this. Pluto is at the second degree of Aquarius, which is 1 degree Aquarius. Think about it. I don't know. It's a technicality, but I've fought other astrologers over this recently. But anyway, Pluto's at 1 degree Aquarius. So, okay, it's a weird phenomenon. Neptune and Pluto are both very close to sign cusps. Let's just put it that way. So with Neptune at the last degree of Pisces and Pluto at 1 degree Aquarius, this means that Venus first trined Neptune at the end of Cancer. Now with Venus near the beginning of Leo, Venus is now suddenly making this opposition to Pluto. So really, when it comes to the aspects this week, it's kind of all about Venus. Venus is not only changing signs, but in the process, she's making these major aspects to these really far-flung, like far outer planets. So when you get aspects like that, like the inner planets are more having to do not only with what's going on a personal level and a day-to-day level, but the inner planets are kind of like normie energies. They're more normal, more mundane. The outer planets get really bizarre and abstract and strange, alien, otherworldly. So when you get aspects like this, where Venus is first channeling in the Neptunian energy with that trine, and then now channeling in this Plutonian energy with an opposition, we're channeling in that weird, bizarre, otherworldly, spiritual and sometimes dark energies from those outer planets into our desires and our attraction this week. Okay, so really, on a kind of broad level, that's a theme for much of this week, especially the latter half of the week. Even like Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, we're feeling, those aspects to Neptune and Pluto. The difference is Thursday's aspect is more, like I said, it's both Venus and Neptune were still in water signs, so it's very emotional, creative, very soft and all that. But it does dramatically change. We're still channeling in like strange energies into our desires and attraction, but in a much different way now. For Friday, this is a much drier energy. Venus in Leo, which is a fire sign, opposing Pluto, and the opposition is a harsh aspect. Unlike this really sweet trine that we were just experiencing with Venus and Neptune, now we're experiencing this harsh opposition between Pluto in Aquarius, which is an air sign, and Venus in Leo, which is a fire sign. So this is much more like intense, I think, especially because Pluto is very intense as well. It's a dark energy. Oppositions, just like what they sound like, it's an opposition. It can represent like kind of a clash. We're wanting something, but there's something pulling us away from what we desire. With Venus and Leo, what we desire may seem kind of simple. We want to get what we want. We want attention. We want, we want someone else that's clearly very attractive in some kind of way. But with Pluto opposing Venus, there's something more elaborate here. There's some kind of other element that's darker. Pluto can often represent like insecurities bubbling up to the surface. So there could be power struggles, insecurities, fears, jealousy, darkness. Pluto's not the most fun energy to deal with, and oppositions are not always the most fun, but oppositions can represent kind of culminations. And I think this is especially fitting when we're talking about a Leo-Aquarius opposition. I think both Leo and Aquarius represent culminations just as signs, like in themselves. So anyway, this is a turning point with what we're desiring. I always preach, what do you want? What are your intentions? If you don't know what you want, you can never hope to get what you want. We have to know what we want. And that can be difficult for those of us that are interested in astrology. We can often be very like go with the flow, and we can be empaths. And, so we need to find that kind of direction from our intentions and desires. But now is a great time for re-evaluating those things. Is what you're wanting truly what's best for you? Is it aligned with other people's intentions as well? There may be conflicts here. There may be darkness here with this Pluto opposition. The silver lining is that Pluto makes us stronger. So Pluto is almost like, I'm almost picturing, Venus is the love goddess. She's very beautiful. She's prancing around in the beginning of Leo. This is a very joyous placement. But Pluto, Hades, the god of the underworld, is this like dark, twisted figure that's much more massive in its energy. It's almost like greater, stronger, like deeper, older, maybe. I don't know. But Pluto is like, they're almost like combating. They're almost having this argument. They are connecting, but it's a tenuous argument. So yeah, is what you're wanting truly aligned with the greater picture? We may have to be stronger to actually get what we want. We may have to be wiser when it comes to knowing what's good for us and what we truly desire. It's kind of like that saying, be careful of what you wish for. Whether it's something else outside of you. That's another thing too. With Pluto, Pluto will teach us one way or another that our power lies within ourselves. So sometimes with Pluto aspects, we will lose a lot. Whatever we believe our power is in, we will lose that in order to learn that ultimately our power is within ourselves. It's not in the job or the car or the money. Sure, those things can make us powerful on a kind of shallow level, but ultimately your power lies within you and your intentions and your personal capabilities. So that's what Pluto teaches us. It's a very difficult lesson oftentimes, but these things could kind of come into play. I don't mean to scare you. Yes, this is kind of a darker aspect, but again, Venus is fortunately one of the quicker planets, so we don't have to dwell on this for too long. We get that really beautiful trine on Thursday, and then this much darker, like intense opposition on Friday. Also, another thing too, just because it's dark doesn't mean it's bad. This could be intense. We might have a very deep attraction or deep like lust or longing. That in itself can have pros and cons. But again, this is a brief aspect. It's really going to affect us for Friday, and then we'll move on as we get into the weekend. And I have one last thing to talk about for Saturday. So for Saturday, July 13th, we do have a quarter moon. This is happening. I don't know why I said it like that. This is happening kind of late in the day, Saturday, Eastern Standard Time. Well, yeah, early afternoon, maybe, Eastern Standard Time. So we've got the sun at 21 degrees Cancer, and the moon, we had a new moon last week, if you'll remember, in Cancer. And then now, a week later, the moon has traveled roughly 3 signs or 90 degrees. And then now, once the moon gets to 21 degrees Libra in the latter half of the day, that's where we'll have this first quarter moon. And I always preach, I'm always like desperate for attention, because quarter moons are such a big deal. Everyone pays attention to the full moons, but not the quarter moons. And I don't know why, because quarter moons, they're equally like visceral, and this is something that's very obvious, I think, in astrology. Like, if you pay attention to this, you'll notice it in your life, guaranteed. It's not like some of these other aspects that can be a little bit like, I don't know, abstract or kind of far reaching, or this is something very visceral. And I think this is especially true for this one. Well, for one, okay, you have to remember, first quarter moons, I would argue, might be the most volatile part of the lunar cycle, maybe even more so than a full moon. A full moon is a culmination. It's an opposition. This is a first quarter square. So the moon and the sun, they're having this contentious dynamic. When we had the new moon a week ago, that was a new beginning, but it was a new beginning in the sense of like a new idea, something new coming in from the ether, a new feeling, maybe a new intention. So yes, that is a beginning, but it's more on like an abstract kind of ethereal level. By the time we skip forward to now on Saturday to the first quarter moon, this is a new beginning in a much more literal, like physical type of way. This is the time to actually start something, like to start a new project, to start a new job or relationship. This represents kind of a crisis because there needs to be change at this time. The moon and the sun are not compatible, so that represents a time of change, a time of action. Whatever began a week ago with that new feeling or thought or dream or whatever it was, that has taken form, it's taken root, and it's building its own identity. It's disturbing the status quo. So that's where we can often feel stressed or anxious on quarter moons, especially first quarter moons. We can feel restless. That's because the energies right now are not supporting us in resting or just being very stable. This is a time of change. What's interesting though with this one in particular is that moon is in Libra, which is typically a less active sign. It's typically passive. However, we've got this very like active dynamic, active angle. So okay, so this represents some kind of change with our relationships. That's what Libra is all about. It can also represent contention between what Libra and what Cancer represents. So again, we might be wanting a certain thing or maybe feeling a certain way, but then maybe our social, dynamics and relationships and responsibilities are not compatible with how we're feeling. And so we have to pick and choose. We have to balance those situations. Of course, you can look for more information to see like where does 21 degrees Libra fall in your chart, and you can see where the new change and the new activity will be for you. If you have major placements in Libra, you will feel this especially. It's a time for you to start something. It's time for you to change something. I don't know what that is. You have to figure that out on your own. But it does look like this is a very important turning point because this quarter moon is very loosely conjunct the South Node. Whenever you incorporate that nodal energy, it's very exciting. It can be a time to learn a lot and to grow a lot, but it's also fundamentally unstable. Okay. So yeah, Saturday looks wild. Honestly, if you want to have a party on Saturday, I would say go for it. It looks like it would be wild, but it could be a lot of fun. Could get out of hand. There's pros and cons to every energy, but this does look like a fun, active energy. Again, we've got Mercury and Venus in Leo, which is a lot of fun, good times, a lot of optimism. And then factoring in this, Sun in Cancer with Moon in Libra, both of these signs are very emotionally intelligent. They want harmony. They value, diplomacy and relationships. So this could be a great time socially. And plus we have that element I talked about earlier where like the elements themselves are roughly balanced right now. We've got some air, water, fire, even earth with like, Mars and Uranus and Taurus. So anyway, I would say, yeah, maybe it's a good time for being active. Like most of us, if we try to just, sit on the couch all day this Saturday, it's going to drive us crazy. You got to get out there, do something, change something, even if it's just like workout or something, just do something to avoid those like restless feelings. Yeah, but it can be very exciting. Yeah, and honestly, that's pretty much what I have for you for this week. So it looks like a good week. Looks like we've got some activity, but not too much. I think that's really nice. Next week, Mars will enter Gemini, and we've got a full moon at the last degree of Capricorn. So very exciting stuff. But thank you so much for joining me for this forecast, and I'll see you next week. Have a great week.